Under the former anchorman creed of frequently in error but never in doubt, let me pass along the following things. I think the single most important thing that I've come to respect among people who do public relations is the community service work. And my experience is that the more effective public relations operations and individuals are people who are intimately involved in community service work, both passionately involved personally and however they've managed to do it to involve their companies and their operations in such. I'll give you some examples, not necessarily of that, but of things that worked and didn't work, things that, mind you, I never get angry, of course, but irritate me over the time, and most importantly, that I don't think were effective. But let me just say that I think the key to both public relations and marketing from where I sit, and keep in mind I'm wrong about a lot of things, as my record clearly shows over the years, there are a lot of things I don't know anything about. I think the key is honesty and integrity, whether it's public relations or marketing. It may not always get you the result that you want, but I think over the long pull, it's the best course for you both personally and professionally. That's been my experience. And anything you can do and everything you can do to run a classy operation, we can discuss the definition of classy, but you want to be classy, will pay dividends both for you personally and for your work goals. That with public relations people, and I've known probably more than my share, it isn't true that I was reporting when Sam Houston was still writing, but I have been doing it a while. And public relations has evolved over the years, as has marketing, as has journalism itself. But with public relations people, their work, which is to say your work, is not unlike my own, that is being a reporter, in this sense, that if you like to call it networking, then do call it networking. But you're no better than your sources. Every reporter knows this. You cannot know about everything that you're going to cover as a reporter, but what you're responsible for knowing is knowing who does know and be able to get to them, have access. Now, I turn that around, the opposite side of the card, with public relations. So often I find public relations people who are well-intentioned and have a good story to tell, but they have no contacts. They think they have contacts. They may have used to, in the old days, they have a Rolodex. Now they have it on their BlackBerry. But there's no substitute for constantly adding to your contacts in the craft among people who control access to the airwaves and to print. And you can never get enough, and that's where the networking comes in. And part of that is that particularly when the heat's on, particularly when you have a bad situation for your company, it's so important to know with whom you are dealing. I can't emphasize that too much. In the same way that there's a broad range of people in public relations, some of them good, some of them not so good, and some of them it's hard to tell, so it is with reporters. And particularly when you have to face the furnace and take the heat, it's really important to know with whom you're dealing. So for whatever, if anything, that may be worth, I pass it along to you. There's nothing original or profound in that, but as it is with journalism, it never hurts to emphasize the fundamentals. Get a long list of contacts, try to develop a personal relationship with what you consider to be certainly the most important ones, and then when you deal with them, you have some capital. They know who you are, you know who they are. A good example would be, I often find, again, especially when there's trouble, the CEO of the company says to the public relations person, "Whew, we got a problem here. How do we handle it?" And the public relations person will say, "Well, there are a lot of things I want to suggest to you, but I think you should do some one-on-one interviews in print or on the air." Then the question becomes, with whom? And I find a common mistake, is by no means, does this apply to everyone, a common mistake is the public relations person doesn't really know who's best to talk to under those circumstances. Another place where it comes into play pretty quickly is when you have information you want to pass along that you don't want your name attached to it. For any number of reasons, you have to know whom can you trust. If you call someone and say, "Look, we're not getting our story out. I don't want my name on it. I want the company on it, but I want to give you some background." which will help you put this in a better context and perspective. Let me pass it along to you. You check it out and decide whether to write it on. You have to know whom to trust and who will check it out and who will give you at least a fair shake. Now, in case you mentioned some situations where I came away thinking these people didn't do a very good job from a public relations standpoint. It's always the most difficult when the reporter or journalistic enterprise knows something or has a piece of something that the company or enterprise would prefer that they not know. Now, let me pause and say that one definition of news, and one to which I subscribe, is that news is what's important for people to know that somebody somewhere in power does not want them to know.